We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Restivo! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth. You're looking well.
You're looking well as well. What have you been eating most recently?
I've been on a rye toast kick. It's like the deli swirl with rye and pumpernickel, and then some butter, and then a banana, and then I've been drinking more coffee to wake up in the morning, and I get what all the hype is about American public. What about you, Parth?
I've yet to eat anything, but I did recently this morning consume some chai my father made for our whole family. Post-Thanksgiving, I feel like everything is just sort of amiss in my stomach, like something's just wrong. And I also recently came back from Texas producing a short there, and I feel like all I ate there was like meat. And
Was it good meat?
Oh, it was great meat, but it's like you can only have brisket so many times, you know, before you start to feel like maybe eating exclusively this is not good for my body.
No, that will lead to an early grave, I hear. A family friend of mine who's 29 just had a heart attack due to an unhealthy diet. So,
well, I think that I
never
normally eat pretty healthily, but then I was like in Texas, and then I had a crazy layover.
Oh, what happened?
Well, my layover went as planned, but it was a red eye. So I was like, I flew at 9 p.m., arrived in Fort Lauderdale at 1 a.m. and then tried to sleep it during my layover, couldn't really at the beginning, watched first half of Skyfall, the James Bond film, and then
You're like, I'll pick the movie called Falling Out of the Sky. That's good for the plane.
and then I was able to use my bag as a pillow near the gate, and I actually did sleep for about maybe like an hour. Got on the plane, but it was like I arrived back at my house at like 10 a.m. And so I feel like, and then immediately went to my cousin's for Thanksgiving. So I feel like I've just been not settled. So it was nice to have some chai in the morning.
And what was it? Just normal Thanksgiving fare?
Well, my family actually for Thanksgiving, as you may know, I'm not white. And so my family...
For my Thanksgiving, everyone can just envision the famous Norman Rockwell painting, turkey, green beans, etc. Parth, now you.
My family has had a tradition since 2005, 2006, where it's like my mom's family and my family get together at the very least, and now my mom's brother as well. We cook a cuisine, like we like decide, like, oh, what are we doing? This year was Ethiopian.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, my favorite, or... the most notable one of recent years was Mediterranean, in which we made pita and like tzatziki and hummus and, you know, whatever. But yeah, the food went well this year.
I like that. I've never heard of a sort of rotating Thanksgiving schedule, but I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun because like we didn't have a Thanksgiving tradition given that, like, you know, my parents are from India. They don't have Thanksgiving there because the Pilgrims weren't there.
No, I hear the Thanksgiving as we've described it. The details are a little hazy anyway.
For me, because my family doesn't really celebrate Christmas growing up, this was like, oh, this is when you get to meet all your family. And like...
And then you wait a full year, you see them again for like 4 more hours.
Oh, well, we sleep over at each other's houses. So then the cousin time really exponentiates. We saw half of Bad Boys 2.
Oh, wow. Ugh, you guys must feel super close.
We do. Speaking of twos, Bad Boys 2... It's a cool sequel.
That's like you take the reins on this.
That's a sequel. I really love that movie Gladiator. I wish it had a sequel.
Gladiator sequel.
Oh, they made Gladiator 2. I wish it was edited. I wish we had an episode.
It's not the number 2. Roman numeral 2 was edited really well. I wonder who's the editor. It was
cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film where we talk about their experience working on the picture. This week we had editor Sam Restivo, who co-edited Gladiator II.
Yes, and he was a very, very cool guest. This is maybe our first Ridley that we are covering. Is that true? I think it might be.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. And Sam Restivo has worked with Ridley Scott on their past few projects.
We talk about how he sort of moves up from an assistant editor up to a full-on co-editor on Napoleon and now Gladiator II.
And now he's just on the scot-free bandwagon and is enjoying the ride.
I think it's a really cool interview. So, Trent, should we cue it?
Let's just stop wasting these people's time with this neat... Yeah. Let's just cue the intro.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with Sam Restivo. He's the editor behind such films as Night Shift, Napoleon, and our film for today, Ridley Scott's Gladiator II. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello, gentlemen. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. So just to start off, how did you know you wanted to work as an editor early on in your career?
Well, so, I've loved movies forever, as far as I can remember. The first movie I saw in theaters was Ghostbusters in 1984. I was 4 years old. I was actually terrified. The first scene of that movie is actually quite scary. And so I ran screaming out of the theater, and my mom had to calm me down. And then she was like, well, do you want to go back in? And I was like, yeah, okay, I want to do it. And so, I've been obsessed with movies ever since then. And, being a child of the 80s in VHS, it was just a constant thing to get to watch movies like that and, Back to the Future and Star Wars and all this stuff over and over and over again. It wasn't until I was a teenager and I started, reading about movies and thinking more about movies. And then it didn't become I want to do this until I saw Heat in 1995, which is a very common thing for a lot of dudes. My wife makes fun of me for that one. That was the movie where when the credits rolled at the end, where I was like, okay, yeah, I got to do this. I want to do this more than anything. And that prompted me to push to get to go to film school. A lot of us then, this is late 90s, early 2000s, we went to go be directors, right? That was the most common thing. And the great thing about the film school education for me, I went to Loyola Marymount University here in Los Angeles, is that you do get to try all the different crafts. You have that ability to do that because it was a smaller school and you could work on your friends' things and on your own stuff. You were doing every job. And I was always kind of tech minded because the little short films that I had made in high school, I was just, I was figuring out how do you put these things together. And so it would be 2 VCRs and a camcorder hooked up where you do play, record and stuff. So I had an understanding of what editing could be. And then in film school, I both got to edit on actual film from Super 8 film and then also Super 16. We cut, Gunsmoke is a very common thing that the film students get to edit even now. Basically, when I graduated, the first job I was able to get was as a post-production assistant on Michael Mann's Collateral. And editorial was always the place I felt most comfortable. Even if I had aspirations to, be a director, I knew that I was kind of better at this thing. And it was too early for me to really even know what it was that I was going to want to do or want to be a part of. So editing always came easier to me. And, here 20 years later, it's the whole career.
Not to jump the gun or anything, but what was it like if you were such a Heat fan to work with Michael Mann?
It was absolutely insane. It was kind of, it's this weird dream come true thing to get to do that. Now, the reputation of working on his films is very earned. These are very, very challenging, very challenging. I was a year out of film school. I was 23. I was very obnoxious. Like to talk about movies all the time. A real highlight for me early in that process, Michael was looking for a specific cue that was in Heat. And, we had the two tape VHS cassette in the office, and I was scrolling through the movie with him, and I was like, no, I think this cue is in this scene. And my brain was just melting at that moment. But that was a very formative job for me for a variety of reasons. One was, I was brand new. I was as green as it gets. For as good as my film school time and education was, I really didn't know anything about anything. So getting to work on a gigantic movie right away was a real baptism by fire, learning that movie days are like 12-hour days, and they work weekends and they work Sundays. And I mean, hell, even that movie, I swear to God, this is true, it had a 24-hour cutting room, meaning like they had a night shift for the movie, which was wild. And that's not a common thing, thankfully. But it's just that was a crazy experience. And me surviving that job turned into a bunch of other jobs down the line.
I have to ask just because we just interviewed the Dune 2 editor, and we asked off the air what his regular day of editing looked like, and he said it was a 17-hour day. What does your normal day of editing look like?
Well, so that's funny. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I mean, Joe Walker is one of the best we got. I'm a huge fan of his work. But on the flip side, the Ridley Scott of it, we really don't do long days. We do probably 10-hour days. And that's me and Claire Simpson is the editor that I work with, who's also just an absolute legend and one of the best editors we've ever had. And so she and our workday usually starts around 9:30 in the morning. During production, we're waiting on the assistant editors to prepare all the footage for us because there's, umpteen cameras and all kind of different speeds and stuff. So we roll it around 9:30. We usually have dailies that we can start looking at sometime by around 10:30 or so. And we like to have watched everything by lunch. And then after lunch, we try to cut the day's material. We divvy it up and get through it so that we're done by like 7:30 or so. Now, during production, Ridley, since we're nearby the set most of the time, we're usually on location, does want to come and see us occasionally a couple times during the week. And the way it's worked with these gigantic movies like Napoleon and Gladiator is that he can't really do that until like Saturday or Sunday, like his off day, he'll come to us. So we end up working a lot of weekends, but the days themselves are not particularly long, thankfully.
Can you sort of talk about your career as a whole? You've got a pretty awesome assistant editing career, and then you made the jump to full-time editor. Can you talk about how you made that jump? And you were an assistant editor on a few Ridley Scott films and the evolving nature of your relationship with Sir Ridley.
Yes. So it's a fascinating thing. So when I graduated film school, me and a lot of others were like, okay, well, where are the movies? We're ready to go. And the reality of actually trying to find a job and survive here in Los Angeles is a crazy challenge. And so my career kind of went on two parallel tracks for a while. On the one side, I was doing a ton of assistant work. I did as a post PA for a few jobs, and then I got moved up to coordinator, and then I had to find my way into the union and start being an assistant editor for a long time. And so that was the one track, which was to work in this field and to get paid. But it wasn't very creative, obviously. On the flip side, I was working on my friends' short films and features, being an editor and on my own things, so that I could actually like do the creative thing and get better at that, while on the main jobs, getting better at the technical side of assistant editing, and knowing or hoping that someday these two tracks would align. And I mean, it took almost 20 years, but it landed, once I started working with Ridley and Claire. It's worth mentioning that I needed all of those years of experience to actually be good enough to hang at this level with the top people. And the way I ended up working with Claire and Ridley here, I was bouncing around between doing assistant editor work and VFX editor work, because I have a lot of background in visual effects as well. And it's an easier field to find work sometimes. But I was looking to get back into picture editing. When I was still on Facebook, I was in this assistant editor group that was this exclusive thing where it's mostly for people that work on higher profile shows. And there was a job posting, and it was a job post, first assistant editor, Ridley Scott, Claire Simpson, sci-fi TV series in South Africa, must be willing to travel. And at that moment, I was like, let's do it. And so I sent the resume in, and I got an interview with Claire, and she and I hit it off immediately. And then I was kind of off and running. And so that particular show, Raised by Wolves, so Ridley did 2 episodes, and they shot them in sequence, which is pretty rare. But what that meant is by the time they were finished shooting the first episode and starting the second one, Claire was a little behind on scenes for the first episode, and things had been going well for us. And she was like, you know what, if you want to go ahead and take some of these scenes for episode 2 and start assembling them, that would really help me out. And so I did that, and then she would watch them. She'd give me feedback, and she was happy enough to give me more scenes, and eventually happy to show them to Ridley, and then happy to have me sit with Ridley and go through it. And our collaboration basically blossomed from there, where once we got to The Last Duel, there was a bigger amount of cutting I was able to do, even more so on House of Gucci, so that by the time Napoleon came around, I was very, very lucky and honored that Claire asked me to co-edit that with her, with Ridley's blessing as well. And it's exploded from there. Working with Ridley is incredible. He's probably the most creative single force I've ever been around ever. He has solutions for absolutely everything. And he's got ideas for everything, and he is, beyond the fact that he's a genuine artist, like a literal, painter and drawer and whatnot. He is the type of artist that is in the moment always, where he's open to all ideas when we're cutting scenes. He has his intended vision for what things are, of course. He storyboards every frame of the movie himself by hand, which is just wild. They're called Ridley Grams. And so he gives us that, and we've got the script, and, maybe we have conversations with him before the show starts. But during that initial assembly phase, he likes us to run wild with it for a bit. We have what his plan was, but then we also bring our own creativity, our own tastes as editors to the process, and he likes being surprised in that moment. So it's a pretty incredible collaboration to get to have with people like him and with Claire.
In working with co-editor Claire Simpson, or co-editing a project with anyone, can you sort of talk about how work is divided?
Yeah, so someone like Claire, who's an absolute legend and has the combination of insane expertise and insane skill and talent, I defer to her always. But when it comes to on the daily basis, when we're editing the new footage from the night before, we watch all of the footage together. And since with Ridley, there's usually 10 to 12 cameras on all of these scenes, we're watching it in the Avid Media Composer 9-bank format, so we can see a bunch of the cameras at the same time. And we're making little notes and comments about, oh, that looks kind of interesting. Oh, that's fun what they did there. And once we get through watching the stuff, it's just well, which one do you want? Do you want that? Do you want that? Sometimes it comes from the script phase. Claire was really taken with the baboon sequence in Gladiator II, and she was like, I'd love to do that one. And I was like, yeah, go for it. Because also the way the production started on this one in Morocco, because Ridley is he is the ultimate multitasker, and he kind of maximizes all of his time in a certain place. We were doing both the baboons and the opening Numidian battle the same week one. So one of us was going to have to take one, and the other was going to have to take the other. And that's from an assembly phase how it starts. But once we get the whole show together and we start, assessing the things that need to happen, we each end up taking turns on each other's scenes. And it's just a straight collaboration from there to the end.
Besides the editors and obviously director, can you talk about any other voices that are active, in the editing suite, or that you're getting notes from throughout the whole process?
Right. No, also always, especially movies of this size, there's a ton of voices. And generally with post, we have a lovely and small editorial crew with a couple of assistant editors, and then our visual effects editors and the sound team and whatnot. And everyone is able to weigh in on certain things that they like or don't like, knowing that, it's going to go through Claire and myself. But then beyond our post-production thing, the producers always weigh in. But, Ridley is producer number one, and, it's his voice that counts the most. But we're always open to what other people have to say. For us as editors, something like length is always a thing. We never want the movie to feel too long. We want it to feel like exactly the right amount of length, regardless of how long the whole thing is. Since we're the ones that are staring at it constantly, you can occasionally lose sight of what's something that's boring or something that's going too quickly. So we often welcome other voices in the cutting room.
You talking about the efficiency of Ridley Scott sort of gives me anxiety almost by how fast he moves. And I know the movie was shot in something like 50 days. And so knowing that you guys work really, compact, yeah, I mean, 10 hours a day is still a long working day, but relatively, is the post period, does that feel not rushed, but like quick? How would you describe the pace of actually working in post?
Right. So there's a broader thing there where working on movies versus working on television series is wildly different. And so I could say that our post feels like fast because we, didn't have the normal amount of weeks that you might have on a movie of this size. But compared to, say, television production, forget it, because that's as hard as it gets, getting through like hour-long TV. Like they are flying through stuff every like couple weeks. So the fact that we even had as long as we did on this one meant that we had plenty of time. And that was offset by a couple different things. One, the two strikes from last year, the writer strike and the actor strike, did slow things down for us, but it allowed us as editors to catch up. We had shot half the movie. And so we were able to get the first half of the movie in a really good shape, and assess what other things we wanted to do to improve what was going to come next for the second half of the shoot. But then also the visual effects component for a movie like this is gigantic. And that's another reason why they put Numidian battle and baboons up front, is because those were going to be sequences that needed the full time. And they, the vendors, ILM and Framestore are fabulous, but they were like largely inflexible just because they knew they were going to need that amount of time to get to the finish line. So I would say with Gladiator II, we had exactly the right amount of time. It never felt rushed. We were ready for it to be done because we were good. We liked the movie that we had. But no, it just every show is different. With movies, you're usually committing to about a year of your life.
So how close to the finish line are you? You mentioned the CGI needed for those early scenes. How close to the finish line are you when you're handed back the finished CGI scenes and then slotting them back into the assembly?
Well, everything is on a sliding scale and everything is on a schedule. So Framestore was the company that was largely doing the animal stuff, the baboons and the rhinos, where ILM was doing a lot more of the battle stuff and like the ending and all of that. And so we were getting these things all at different times. So we were never really at the finish line until we were at the finish line, which on movies is the final mix. Once you make it to the final mix, pretty much everything is in place. Now, movies continue to change, as long as people are giving notes, be it the director or the studio or the producers, like you will make these changes. But with Ridley on most of his projects, we've been in a pretty awesome place by the time the final mix starts, which usually is about a month to 6 weeks before the end for the movie.
I know that Ridley Scott shoots with a lot of cameras. Does that level of coverage make it more difficult? Or, I mean, I know you're given the Ridley grams, so then I guess you have a plan, but is that ever overwhelming as an editor to have so much to play with?
Well, no, I mean, so that's the dream. I feel very fortunate to get to work on movies like this with people like Ridley and Claire and the rest of the department heads and stuff. But it's an overwhelming thing because it's such a gigantic, movie. The budgets are huge and the footage and oh my God, all these things. And there's this quote going around now from Ridley talking to Paul Mescal about, his day one on that and Ridley telling him, well, your nerves are no good to me. And that's correct for us as well. And so the first
such an
opportunity,
awesome quote.
It is, yeah. The first opportunity when I got to start cutting stuff was like on Napoleon. I got to do the Battle of Waterloo sequence, and you could look at it one way and be like, "Oh my God, this is just insane! This massive Ridley Scott, all these cameras, yeah." Or you can look at it like, "Oh my God, it's Ridley Scott! I get all these cameras. I can do everything that I could possibly want to." And so that's the perspective you need to have to work on these projects, because he expects everyone to be working at the top of their game, to play at his level, because he's already done all his homework. He's drawn all the shots. He has a full plan in mind. So to get to be a part of like a department head kind of role, you really have to just embrace the thing and enjoy it. So when you have all of these cameras and all these shots, it's an embarrassment of riches. Like we're lucky to, like, anytime I was looking for, oh my God, if only, the rhino, if we could have some low angle shot where he's chasing the guy and it's like, oh wait, they've got it. He's always got it. Or if we could have one that's mounted on the side of the rhino where it's going past, well, he's got it. So like it's the best way to get to work on movies.
So the first Gladiator film is obviously like deeply ingrained in this film for a bunch of reasons. And how, as the co-editor, were you thinking about the first film, either trying to be one with or distance yourself from the way that was edited?
Yeah, we're trying to thread the needle just right, because like the first movie is this like cultural, touch point for so many people. I mean, for me, I saw the first movie the day it came out at the Cinerama Dome, May 5th of 2000. I was in film school, and it blew me away. We knew that like trying to like live up to the first movie is a real challenge. So why don't we try to make it something that it's its own thing? Of course, we were always going to lean back to some aspects of the first movie to tie it together because it's all part of the same universe. But we wanted to have a slightly different feel, and also to draw the contrast between, Lucius and Maximus are different people. They're different characters. And we knew from every aspect of it, including like the music, it's going to have a slightly different feel, but it's, within the same kind of DNA of the universe.
And you obviously show footage from the original film in this film. Was that always part of your intention, or was that something you found as being a necessary sort of way to connect both movies?
Well, no. So part of it was in the screenplay, in David Scarpa's great script. There was the sequence where Lucilla harkens back to Maximus's death. That was in there, including with Lucius' safe line. So we knew we were going to use that. But then there were other moments, like when Lucius goes up and touches the breastplate to cut back to this is Scotto and Argento, the horses. Those were things that we came up with. The biggest one of those, though, was the main title sequence, which Ridley he loved the artist that did, it was both the end credits on his Robin Hood and then also his Scot-Free logo, this guy named Gianluigi. And he was thinking that might be a cool thing to have an animated opening. But at first it was going to be, maybe shots from the movie or something, but it was a collaboration of Claire, him, and myself, that it was like, well, why don't we use that to kind of refresh audiences for what the first movie did? Because, a fascinating thing that we found during the testing process on the movie is that a good like quarter of the audience has not seen the first movie. And so, not that it's a full rundown of what happens, but some of the imagery does help remind people of what happened in the first movie. So that opening title sequence was a huge part that came through the process, and it was not planned.
I'd read somewhere that opening title sequence was originally longer, but then because of how long the movie ultimately is, that it was like rearranged in some way or something, like to make it just slightly shorter. Do you remember anything about that?
No. So the length of the main title had to be locked right away. Because of the process that the artist used to create the images. We had that done to however many, it was like 2.5 or 3 minutes. We actually had to have that early on and stick to that. Also for Harry Gregson Williams' music to line up exactly. So no, that one, once we realized that was going to be the concept, we had to lock it down.
What an interview.
Well, part one.
There was sort of a lack of finality to it, which I was sort of upset by, and then excited about the possibility that there could be a part two to our part two.
As soon as the sadness registered, it was overcome by a wave of the excitement about next week's episode. Next Sunday, to be exact, 7 days from now. Every 7 days, a new craft services podcast episode comes out.
It's like Christmas every week.
It's more like Hanukkah, if you think about it, because it's like one gift. It's like one medium-sized gift. It's not, Parth, we're not releasing a whole year's worth of episodes on one day. You need to pace your Halloween candy throughout the coming months.
This is like if Hanukkah was 52 weeks.
It's like if Hanukkah was 52 weeks and all you got was a decent film podcast with really cool guests, like editor Sam Restivo.
Yes, thank you so much to editor Sam Restivo for coming on the show. We are looking forward to finishing up our conversation next week. He was super cool, super nice. Next week, we talk about some more Michael Mann. We get a little Michael Manny in this half, but
Second half, we get more Michael Mann, which is pretty cool, pretty exciting.
Yes, thank you to Sam Restivo's team for setting this up and for, communicating with Parth back and forth to set this up. Parth, I'm just going to cut you off right there. Okay, so people can listen to us on Instagram. Nope, they can check us out on Instagram or Twitter, but listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, frankly, wherever you get your podcasts.
These are all true things. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Gladiator Part 2. Happy Thanksgiving, Trent.
Happy Thanksgiving, Parth. Will there be more? These movies, they just keep coming out. It's like they're just like next week there'll be a new movie, then maybe we'll talk about that, so on and so forth.
We don't have the interview planned yet, but there's a few interviews that are sort of circling around our radar, and all of them are really cool people, just like Sam Restivo. And Trent has made some exciting purchases, which will
On
make
Black Friday.
future episodes maybe sound a little bit more interesting.
Dare I say, higher quality. That's that on that, Parth. Bye, Parth.